Halloween, la 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 la, Halloween. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. Hello everyone, and welcome to day 29 of Terrorthon. Did you guys know that if you move the truck in Pokemon Red and Blue, you can actually capture a Mew? Did you know that? Today's subject is urban myths. We've all heard tales like this, whether it be in a video game, sitting around a campfire, around the water cooler. We've all heard a nonsense story, but some of them are actually rooted in truth, and some of them aren't bullshit whatsoever. So we're going to take a couple of the more commonly told urban myths, and we're going to look at them. We're going to see, is there any truth to them? Where did they come from? Let's get to it with one of the most famous ones, if not the most famous and enduring one, Bloody Mary. So what happens in this is you turn off the lights and you stare into a mirror in the complete blackness and you say Bloody Mary 3 times and she will appear and possibly kill you. Or in some versions of the tale you say Biggie Smalls. Biggie Smalls. So where did this come from? Well, Bloody Mary was named for Mary the First of England, who killed 300 Protestants, which earned her the nickname Bloody Mary. The tale has changed over time. Originally, what you had to do was you had to walk upstairs backwards while holding a candle and a hand mirror. And if you said the name then and looked into the mirror, you could see your future husband's face. So I'm sure I don't even need to say that this is complete nonsense. I wouldn't try it myself, but it is complete nonsense. Trust me, guys. But where did it come from? Where did this idea come from? Well, it turns out that if you stare at a mirror for long enough in a dark room, it can actually cause mild hallucinations, which is kind of crazy. It's known as the strange face illusion, and it can make your skull look different, it's swollen, it can make you see other faces, and it's just all from looking in a mirror in the dark. It's an interesting phenomenon. Next up, we're going to discuss the alligators in the sewers. Again, I think everyone's heard of this one. The tale goes that some people flush baby alligators down their toilets, and then they went down to the sewers where they grew up and became big nasty beasties. These stories began in the late 1920s, and they were possibly created by a man called Teddy May, who was the Commissioner of Sewers at that time. These tales are usually related to New York City, and for good reason, which we're going to get into now. Now, animals can survive in sewers, but not for very long due to the bacteria that's in human feces, and of course the cold temperatures down there. However, this was possibly true in the early 1930s, where you could just buy a baby alligator in any old store, and when it got too big you would flush it down the toilet. So they have existed. There have been alligator sewers in the past, and the present actually. The most recent sighting of an alligator in a sewer was in Florida in 2017. Isn't that crazy? This is actually true. I don't believe it. Now, I remember being told this urban myth in the past. So the story goes that a woman went on holiday and she got bitten by a spider, and the bite wound swole up, and then she took a bath, and then the heat made the swelling burst and a bunch of baby spiders came out. Nonsense. I mean, think about it. Do spiders lay eggs with their fangs? Of course not. So how is the venom somehow turning into baby spiders? And furthermore, spiders cannot grow in human flesh. And if a spider had a choice, it would not be placing its eggs inside a human. Like, ridiculous. Ridiculous, I tell you. Now here's 2 others that I grew up with. So this first one I heard from my dad, who told it to myself and my gran. So the story goes, a woman goes on holiday. She hooks up with a guy in the club. They go back to his place and they do the no pants dance. She goes home and she notices a strange swelling in her nether regions and maggots as well. So she goes to the doctor, who investigates it and says the only way this could possibly have happened is if you came into contact with a dead body. But of course she didn't, so it must have been the guy who was having sex with corpses for some strange reason. This originated in Malta, this story, from the Mater Dei Hospital morgue. I don't know exactly how that started. I guess someone just felt like being funny. And the story got so out of control that the Mater Dei Hospital had to actually release a statement saying it was not true. And like, think about it. Like, how are maggots going to form in your nether regions? Another version of the story is she just got it in her mouth because she kissed the guy. Like, do I even need to say how ridiculous it is? Like, how did I, and more to the point, my gran, ever believe this? And here's another one that I heard a lot when I was just a kid. So, you know what a flume is? It's a water slide, like an insulated water slide. The urban myth was that people were going around these water slides, somehow stopping themselves on them and placing razor blades into the flumes. Now, just saying that out loud makes you realise how ridiculous it is. How do you get razor blades into a swimsuit or swimming shorts and then get down a flume and stop yourself long enough to insert razor blades? Like this, again, this story got so out of control that it appeared in the newspapers, and there's never been one single instance of this happening. God knows where it started in the first place. And finally, since we're so close to Halloween, we've got another really famous one. The poisoned sweets, or candy, as you Americans say. These stories began during the Industrial Revolution, when people were being forced to spend more time with strangers and grew paranoid and didn't trust anyone. But it continued all the way through to the 1890s and persisted even longer from the 1960s and 1970s all the way to the present day. How? Now, where did these stories begin in the first place? Well, it was often children copycatting, like they'd heard these stories and started placing dangerous objects in sweets. And there were several misattributed deaths to poisoned sweets. Now here's a grim story for you. One of these poisoned sweet stories came when a child actually ate his uncle's heroin, and the uncle blamed it on poisoned sweets. And then even grimmer, a father murdered his son one time for life insurance money with cyanide-laced sweets. And he then said, oh, it must have been a stranger when he was out trick-or-treating. Pretty messed up. There has never, not one single time, been a proven case of a child being killed or even seriously injured from poisoned sweets. However, here's a frightening statistic that is true. Children are at least 3 times more likely to be hit by a car on Halloween, because obviously they're out trick-or-treating and don't care much for road safety when there's sweets on the go. So there you go, that's a little list of the more famous urban myths, and you can decide for yourself whether you want to continue believing them or take the evidence I've given you and say, nah, bullshit, just as I always thought. So there we go. Thank you for watching.